I'm just watching my dog. We've just got a new sofa for the dining room, and oh, Sharon, hello, Sharon. And of course, who's the first one to grab a place on the sofa? So I've had to put a sheet over the whole of it so he can lay on it. He thinks that's just the way things are. It's for him, and he looks so comfortable. He looks so comfortable. Oh, bless him. If those of you who've been here, this is Jaya. Banky's upstairs with Gain and my wife. So we're just waiting for people to join. I'm a bit sore. I just had a shower earlier. Got some, and you get some shampoo in your eye. Sort of stings for a while later, doesn't it? Good evening, Claire. Just sit quietly waiting for people to arrive. Just sit quietly. Okay, so it's there are certain seasons. I've just been the festive season, Christmas. I prefer the term Christmas to festive season, but it's been Christmas. It's been a season of Christmas, festive season. We have the summer season, we have the winter season, we have the spring and the autumn, and we have the seasons. The grape picking season, the almond picking season. There are lots of seasons. And there's but there's also what I call the judgment season, which tends to happen all year long. It's not confined to just a few months of the year, unfortunately. It'd be nicer if it was, I know. And I think judgments made by ourselves and onto ourselves causes a lot of distress. And the first thing we want to do, when I'm sharing this with people, and it's this judging mind, and you just be walking down the street, can't you? And you're judging people, their haircut, their shoes, the way they walk, and that's what the mind does. The mind, what the mind wants to do is to cut things up into little pieces. It cuts the global reality up into little pieces. Bad, good, okay, I'm all right with that. I don't like that. I like that. Crap, mate. Get your act together. You're all right. We even judge our meditation, don't we? We judge ourselves, judge other people, judge our meditation. We're judging everything. And you could say it's just the job of the inner judge to judge. That's all it knows. That's all it does. It just judges. I think one of the first mistakes we make regarding judging is that we want to stop, and that we actually try to stop. And it's even there in one of the famous quotes of mindfulness. Mindfulness is paying attention non-judgmentally. Now, yes, there's truth in that, but it needs explaining because the mind judges. A thought rises, good, bad. We judge a thought with a thought. A thought arises, I don't know, a nasty thought arises, then we judge it as bad. A nice thought arises, nice. I like that one. So we're judging all the time. And all judgment is, do you know what it is? A thought. It's just a thought. But we've done it for so long that we just believe those judgments. And one of the first things we want to do is I'm going to stop. I'm going to try to stop judging. And it doesn't work. Because judging is thinking, and the mind is meant to think. That's its purpose. So in a sense, like the season of goodwill, the season of what is it? The longest day and the shortest day. The celebrations go on. We rejoice in things, don't we? Things happen. Rejoice in the judgment season instead of judging the judgment. Oh. We can rejoice that actually, look at all. This is really interesting. Look how much I'm noticing. Because that's the first step in being free of the judgment. And when I say free, I don't mean it will never happen, because some of the discerning thoughts are useful. Some of those judging thoughts are useful. So what we do is just start to notice. We start to notice in meditation. A sound, don't like that. The sound of a bird, that's nice, that one. I like that one. Don't like the sound of the bus. Or somebody shuffling in their chair if you're in a group. Or coughing. No, I don't like that one. But the sound of the bell or the sound of the bird, that's nice. I like that one. That's nice, that one. And straight away we're into it. Pleasure and pain. It doesn't take long before we're into the pleasure and pain principle. Pleasure and pain principle. So all I need to do is just to acknowledge judgments as thinking. That's why I say label your thought, thinking. So tomorrow, some home practice for you. Have the intention of noticing your judgments. Well, let's see how many judgments I notice. Instead of trying to repress them and suppress them, let's see how many we have. And let's see the variety. Like being in an orchard, the different variety of apples, slightly different shapes and textures and age, and insects have gone in some and not in the others. Oh, interesting. So what we do, when we can observe that, there's a part of us is standing or sitting outside of the judgment. And as we observe the judging, instead of getting engaged and involved in them, they slowly, and it's slowly, guys, this is for the rest of our life, they slowly begin to weaken. The only problem is we've been doing them for a long time, so there's a lot of investment in them. There's a lot of energy behind them. See, and what happened is when we judge someone as, a judgment that's so-called positive or so-called negative. Okay, they're all just judgments, as far as I'm concerned. But you know what I mean? But, oh, I like her, or I don't like him. Wally, oh, wonderful. What that does, it gives us a sense of ourself in relation to that person. So it reinforces the sense of self. Because that judgment is really about you, about me. And the judgment, I mean, you look at Facebook and Twitter, the amount of judgments going on. And what people think, they think it says something about the person they're judging, but it says more about the person judging, about the judger, or about the judge. That's what it says something about. Oh, it says something about me. And what about when we are judged? I said, let's just have a pause there, guys. Let's just a minute or two, just. Just feel your body. Feel your breath. And notice any judgments. Just notice any thoughts. They're all just thoughts. And feel free to keep your eyes closed if you want to, or just lay down, or whatever you want to do. You don't have to look at the screen. We all have a self-image. It's an image we have vaguely in our head about who we are and how we are. And when somebody judges us, it challenges that image. It's like that, if somebody calls us a name, say something about it. Maybe we think of ourselves as, I don't know, a good nurse, and somebody good at our job, and somebody challenges that. What that does, it challenges our sense of ourself, our self-image. And that's why we feel hurt. And so we go around trying to protect this self-image. And it's just an image that exists in our head. Like somebody says something and there's a kind of hook. It gets stuck. It gets hooked. It gets caught on something. And it gets caught on this sense of ourself, this self-image. And that's why it's really painful sometimes. Because this is not how I view myself. And my sense of myself is precious. The sense of ourself is precious. And so when somebody attacks that sense of self, we attack back, or we either attack back or we go inward and we sort of collapse. We may ruminate on it, or we judge them back or criticize them back. So there's a very simple way of dealing with criticism or judgment. And when we're criticized, it's like the mind goes into overdrive. Oh, how dare they? Or maybe I am rubbish. Maybe I am this. Maybe that. Maybe the mind gets busy, and the mind gets busy so that we don't feel our hurt because we don't like it. This hurt challenges my sense of self. There must be wrong, or maybe I am crap. So what we can do instead of staying in that, the spinning, we can take our attention to the hurt. Where do you feel it? Normally, you feel it, around this area. So we just feel it. That's what we do. We just feel that hurt. And what happens is the hurt, if we just feel it without all the mental and emotional overlay, without the story, it begins to dissipate or evaporate. It decreases. Okay. But that's the least thing we want to do. We want to go into our head and to have some sort of story about it. Why they're wrong or why they are right. And all that just exacerbates the whole thing. The problem isn't in the criticism. I'm not saying we shouldn't say anything if you think they're out of order, okay? But we don't have to collapse because of a criticism. So what we do, see, the whole of meditation is learning to feel. That's what we're doing. We learn to feel once again. But the problem is this reference point of me. And the me that is built up out of an image. When you look for this self-center, you don't find anything. It's a vague sense of self, which runs our life. Feel free to send any questions or comments over, guys. Just going to take a moment. or anything that's been on your mind that's not connected with this evening, feel free. Just come back to the body. That's all we need to do. I'll come back to that, Sharon. It's a good question. Just feel the body. Notice any sounds. Give yourself a break. Have a period of unminding. A little bit of unminding. Unminding and unwinding. So is this self-image that is causing all the fear, the ego? Well, the self-image is the ego. The ego is see, let me tell you something that you may not believe. When you look inside yourself, you won't find a person. You won't find an ego. It's a self-image. It's like when you're driving along a road in the summer and ahead of you, you see a mirage. It looks like water. What happens when you go to it? There's nothing there. I've talked about this before. What happens is from that globality of being a baby, at about the age of 2, we start to develop reason. And when the faculty of reason begins to develop, which is a useful faculty, of course, one that other animals don't have, that's why other animals don't have a self-image in the way that we do. Maybe some gorillas or chimpanzees have a beginnings of a one, but not like way off the scale. And the ability to think abstractly develops. Okay, we develop abstract thinking develops, and we develop this abstract self that's removed from reality. It doesn't exist. But then from the age of 2-ish, this is reinforced by the whole of society. And this is what all the great masters are telling us. All the great religions are really pointing to this, but it just gets lost. It gets lost because the mind gets hold of it and it makes it into a path. So you have to do this, you have to act like this, you have to be this, you have to be that. There's, instead of it just being here, just have a look now at yourself, see what's going on. You have to be better, you have to be good, you have to be saintly. You have to clear yourself of all your sins. You have the 52 chinky chankers, the 32 hooby joobies, and all these things that you have to, all these hoops that you got to go through. Buddhism's similar. Buddhism does it. But in Buddhism, just as in other religions, there are teachings which take you direct. This is it. Find that. Have a look for that. And free yourself from the delusion. We're deluded. So through the faculty of reason, we start to construct this sense of a separate self, a self-center. Now, I know on Saturday you were there, Sharon. We look for this self-center. Nobody can find it. But it's so convincing. We look and we look, or we just listen to the sound of the traffic, because there's no self-image in the sound of the traffic. See, what we have to do, we have to get out of this self-image. And when we begin to get out of it into real life, which is the patter of the dog's feet, the wagging of its tail, the smelling terrible because they've been in the Thornton Reservoir, and that's reality. The senses. That's why meditation is about coming back to feeling and the senses. That's all it is. And from there, just have a look. This feeling sense of me. And this is the Buddha's message, that is the source of all your problems. Source of all fear. Fear arises because, well, a baby doesn't have fear. It doesn't have psychological fear. It may have natural fear of falling off a cliff or something. Maybe not. Maybe even that's not developed. I don't know. But what we're doing is having a look at our own experience. The only thing worth really believing is the evidence of our own experience. I can tell you for the rest of our lives that your true nature is one of peace and happiness. But it won't make any difference unless we do the work ourselves. And it's not work, I don't mean over time, just look now. What we do, we eternally go into thought to make sense of the world. Well, I don't know what Saricita means. You can't understand it with the mind. Don't listen with the mind, listen with the heart. A lot of the time, guys, I'm not speaking to you. I'm not speaking to your mind. I'm speaking to awareness behind the mind, or something that's is bigger than the mind. And the mind doesn't exist. They're just thoughts, memories, images. In Buddhism, you just call them mental events. It's just mental events. There's not a mind that thinks. There's not a mind like the size of I haven't got anything, but like the size of a coin, or sits there in the middle of the brain and then thinks. There's not a thinker. There's not a thinker inside there. If you were the thinker, wouldn't you stop thinking 70% of the thoughts you do? Do you know what you're going to think tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the evening? Not a chance. We know nothing. What I'm sharing here is with what I'm sharing here with you, and what I'm seem to be sharing more and more is what we call the direct path, which is a maybe a strange way of saying it, a path that is direct. But I'm wanting us to have a look. Just listen to the sounds. Really listen. And it feels like there's someone in here listening. I am listening. But I is just a thought. Does the thought hear, or do the ears hear? Does the thought feel? No. The body feels. There's just functioning. That's all there is. There's natural functioning. The miracle of natural functioning. But we think I'm here living my life. We are like being on a roller coaster. We're at the front of the roller coaster. We've got one of those pretend steering wheels. We've got our hands gripped tightly on the steering wheel of this roller coaster, and we're doing this, thinking that we're driving the roller coaster. And we tense because we've got to make sure it turns the right way. Whoa, and down, ooh, yeah. And we're in control of all this. But slowly someone says to us, you know that you're not in control here. And all that belief in control of our life, what does it create? Because if we feel in control of it, we're going to have to really think about it, make sure that it works. Oh, I need to make sure my life works out. And slowly, we might begin to take our hands, loosen our grip on the steering wheel, and relax. And what happens? The exact same thing. But we're there to enjoy the ride. So you wake up in the morning. Do you decide to think? No, thinking begins to happen. When you're asleep, do you think about digesting your food? No, it just happens. Do you beat your heart? No. Do you breathe? No. It all just happens beautifully. But the problem with the human being, and this was the Buddha's essential message, you believe that you are in control of your life. There's something that is separate from life controlling your destiny, your life, what happens. And that is the problem. And we cling. That idea is clung to. It's a concept. It's a conceptual prison. How do we get out of the conceptual prison? On every session, that's what I'm sharing, to the best of my ability. You get out of that prison by feeling your hands. Not by trying to work anything out. You feel your hands. You listen to the sound of the fridge. You notice your thoughts. And you notice when you've been indulging, being lost in your thoughts. Come back here. Any questions, guys? I know when we first hear this message, it's a bit radical. It's a bit, but see, we try to understand it with the mind. It can't be understood. Mindfulness is not something to be understood. The Buddha's purpose of mindfulness was to investigate our own experience and to become free from emotional, and psychological suffering. There's still pain, but see, when you start to see through this, it's like, the criticism we talked about earlier, it gets hooked and it gets stuck. It gets stuck on that sense of me, of this self-image. When you see through the self-image, there's nothing for things to get stuck on anymore, so they've just passed through. It all arises, the hurt arises, but it just passes through. It doesn't get stuck. See, with us, it gets stuck. Oh, how dare he? Oh, maybe. And it gets stuck. Meditation is unsticking ourselves, unblocking ourselves. Sharon, I've often thought I know nothing. Now I know it's okay. It is. It is. In Zen, say, little doubt, little enlightenment. Big doubt, big enlightenment. Is that what you know? I wonder how to word it, because this can seem very subtle, and from when we're conceived, the sperm and the egg meet, and then it develops into an embryo. Biology was my strong point, but then you know that there's a natural intelligence that runs the universe. I don't mean it's out there running the universe. It is the universe. Natural intelligence is the universe. It grows the trees, it grows the grass, it lives the dogs, it creates tables, it creates plants, it creates this universe. It's created this creations of animals and human beings. My goodness. What a creation. And what happens? It creates, the embryo, the egg and the sperm come together. Then it creates this little tiny little human being. You might not call it human being then, but and it starts to grow little fingers and little hands and little eyes and little ears. And you didn't ask for any of those. When did you arrive? Why don't you remember your birth? Because you weren't there. You only arrived at about the age of 2.5. But now you feel so real, don't you? as separate from the world. And that's where your question, Shara, about fear, that's where fear comes in. Fear starts to come in around about then. Because if I'm separate from the world is a threatening place. And I need to make sure I fit in. I need to make sure I'm accepted. And so all the games start to play. And if we get a like a strange look off daddy or mummy, maybe I need to smile more. So then we develop these strategies. And out of this develops a self-image. This is how I am. This is who I am and how I am. And we go through life with this self-image. We never examine it. We don't investigate it. And that's what meditation is. It's examining, investigating who we are. Sometimes called self-inquiry. Or the Buddha called mindfulness. I spent years trying to develop myself. Not years, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Such a drama queen. I didn't spend years. I spent a few years trying to develop myself into what I thought I should be. See, I have this self-image of myself as I am now, and then I project that into the future, and I'd like to be this sort of person. It's exhausting. So what we do instead of when I came across the Zen approach and the more Tibetan Buddhist approach, the more direct and immediate approach path, is that this is it. How do I heal my life? I heal it. I heal my life by being with my life as it is, not by trying to be different, not by projecting a vision of the future. Because it's all just a build-up of this self-image. So in meditation, what did I begin to do? Instead of trying to change myself and get rid of the bad parts and develop the good parts and split myself up into good and bad and that over there, and I just embrace the whole lot. When you feel sad, just feel sad. When you're a sad Buddha, be a sad Buddha. When you're a happy Buddha, be a happy Buddha. When you're being a judgmental Buddha, just know that you're being a judgmental Buddha. A Buddha isn't someone who doesn't judge, it's just someone who doesn't believe it anymore. And when we stop believing, you tend to have less of something. It's the belief that is the fuel. So just be what you are. Let's stop pretending. Get something off the screen. Let's stop pretending we are something else and be what we are. I feel really pissed off. Okay. If I can acknowledge that and own it, I'm less likely to lash out at somebody. My teacher used to talk about contain your emotions. He didn't say constrain. He said contain them, hold them, feel them. Just feel what's here. Right now, feel your contact with the chair or the bed. Notice the sounds of your computer or whatever you're watching it on. Maybe there's sounds of the TV on in another room. That is real life. That's where we want to be. And that's the joy of life. The joy of life is being with life. But for a few moments, when we come back to a sound, just listen to a sound. The sense of presence now, just come back to this sense of presence. Relax into this sense of presence. Are you present now? Yes, that's it. Just feel it. That's how we heal our lives. But see, guys, it's not dramatic and sensational. It's not entertaining. Because that's what we used to. I want a dramatic breakthrough. I want to see angels and celestial beings and, sit the right-hand side of God and all that and see bright lights. And they're just distractions. The Buddha used to say that people used to ask him, can a Buddha read minds? Can he foretell the future? And he says, it's all distraction. Do you want to be free from suffering? I can show you how. If you want all these other things, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, and go somewhere else. But I can show you how to stop suffering. Stop playing mind games. Stop pretending about who you are. Be who you are. This right now. Stay there for a few moments. Then what happens? You're off into your thoughts, thinking about, oh yeah, I could do this, I could do that, and oh yeah, and oh yeah, and oh she shouldn't have. Well, what did she mean when she said that? She can get lost, or whatever. And then we're away again. This thought-made world, this abstract world that we create. And the teaching is, okay, we label it and we come back to the feeling of the air coming in and leaving on the top lip or the nostrils. The feeling of a tense jaw. Ever thought a tense jaw could be a portal to liberation before? But we're more interested in the exciting, more interested in thinking about ourselves than actually being ourselves. We don't recognize peace when we see it. Don't recognize it. There's a kind of familiarizing ourselves with it. So just come back to who you are right now. The sense of presence, the body. You won't find freedom in the mind. Any final questions, guys? If there is, send them over. Otherwise, I just want to give you that home practice again. Not even practice. Maybe tomorrow, notice. Maybe have the intention of noticing your judgments. Let's notice how many judgments I have and what they're like. What kind of judgments? Be interested in them. Just label them as thinking or judgments. Okay, guys, thank you. And I'll see some of you soon. Yeah. Bye-bye.